Hello and welcome to Season 2, Episode 21 now of the DC United Kingdom podcast. I'm your host, James Graham. You'll see over on this side of me, and I'm getting good at this because I'm always pointing to the right and I'm getting it correct now, is Kim Kolb, frequent commentator and a photographer for the Screaming Eagles, one of our many supporter groups and one of the best photographers I've seen for a long time in terms of the sports photography. Welcome to the show, Kim.
Oh, thanks, though. That's extremely kind of you. Many people take some great pictures, especially at United games, so that's very kind of you.
You're very welcome. Just a little bit coming up on today's show. We've got a lot to talk about. There was some massive news last night. I don't know whether you've heard, but there was something big that just happened, so we will have a little chat about that. We've got the standard soccer stuff, so we've got the previous game against New York City FC to talk about, if we really need to, because that wasn't a great game. We've got the upcoming game against Chicago Fire as well, so that is on Saturday evening, if I remember rightly, or Sunday morning for me,
The days blend.
The days do blend. The time zone difference it baffles me even more now, so yeah. And then I've got to thank the show sponsors first and foremost. So that is the guys over at MLS UK Show. So Henry and Elliot, they do some fantastic things. You'll see in the description a link to their website that has all their podcasts that they do. It has the blogs, it has clips on there. You can subscribe to them on YouTube. And on their next episode, you'll see yours truly, because I spoke with Henry on their next episode. So check it out, subscribe, leave a review for them because, they're absolutely awesome. And yeah, just check them out because I do too. We've had our first comment of hello from Andy McBride. Hi, Andy. Nice to see you've actually joined us this time. You missed out last episode, I know, because I spoke to you about it. So, hello. So we've got a heck of a lot to talk about. Shall we start off with the big news or should we talk about the game?
The bad news of the bad news?
Yeah. Well, is it bad? Is the big news the bad news, really? Or is it bad news and good news at the same time?
The positive side, it's bad news, good news, right? For the game, right? So,
Yeah.
I think that is part of it, right? Ben Olsen.
Yes, indeed.
He did his duties, I think.
He has been. He's still at the club, though, which is a nice thing because I know that was part of his contract. But this year hasn't been kind to him. Granted, he's been here as a coach anyway for 10 years. He's won one trophy. Was that good enough at all? Because you see some clubs who sack their managers very quickly, but Ben was given time. Was this the right time to get rid of Ben Olsen?
I think it depends. I think you see me on Twitter, like what I put out, it's like, well, what's the plan? Are you going to put, so you let Ben Olsen, relieve Ben Olsen, and you bring in somebody, but we have the same plan. And it's tough to see strategic direction from the club, right? And I think that's always what we've seen, right? And we've always heard talk about revenue handicaps due to RFK and all these issues, right? And somebody I was talking to had a great analogy that we've been sending Ben Olsen to sword fights with toothpicks.
Right. That is a heck of an analogy. I like that one.
And so, and realistically, yeah, he hasn't really had the best rosters to pick from to do things, right? And to build things. And I think that goes to Dave Casper as well. And where do those decisions get made? How are those decisions that get made? And what are the priorities to put things together? And so, as another point, another analogy is like, they got all these leftover parts that they've cobbled together at times and made some great runs. And they've got some leftover parts and they've cobbled them together and they've made awful runs.
Yeah.
Which is what we're in right now. Right. And so, that's just a lack of strategic direction. Right. And I think I'm hopeful that it's a good change, both for Ben and for DC United, that we're coming through here. But it's about what are the next steps that happen to make that
exactly
something that we could all be proud of and happy with.
Yeah, it has been a tricky few years, especially for someone like myself who's having to watch it from this side of the pond, staying up late, getting battered week in, week out, especially that result against Atlanta United and then the result against NYCFC, conceding 4 goals in each game, only scoring the 1. It's been a tough run. And 2020, I think we can kind of write off from the fact that it's just been so bizarre. Obviously, with the pandemic, the fact that we had this MLS's back tournaments, the restarts and everything. I know everyone's been in the same boat, but as a whole league performance, you can't really base too much on that, in my eye anyway. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely, right. And that was one of my thoughts, that maybe they would at least let Ben go through his contract next year, right? Is just that, okay,
Yeah.
you know what? Let's just have 2020 as a write-off. He's had to restart the team 3 times
Yeah.
this year, right? And yeah, it's like you said, everybody's going through it for sure, but obviously there's some chemistry issues on the field, and to try and get those together in those parts and try and get what does work together, it's obviously been a challenge, and it's just been too big of a hill to climb.
Yeah, and then on top of that, we've had some major injuries this year. Obviously, Paul Arriola been out for the entire season so far with his torn ACL. Then we've had Edison Flores out for it feels like quite a while, which is, I think, it's longer than I was expecting, with his multiple fractures to his face. And then who else we've had out injured? Well, I think we've had our entire defence out at some point. And
Boo is out.
That's it. Felipe's out with
Felipe,
another
your
ACL.
fashion consultant, is out. And hello, Felipe. How are you?
Felipe, if you're watching right now, please drop a little comment in there. And that goes for everyone whilst I'm thinking about it. If you got anything to say, anything about Ben Olsen, about his time at the club, whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's indifferent, whether it's from when he was a player, as a coach, whenever, please drop it in the comments. And whilst you're out there, just click subscribe as well, if that would be absolutely awesome.
Back to the injury point. They're not injuries where you could point to a trainer or physio to translate, right? They're in-game injuries, right? It's Flores is a contact injury. ACLs is not something you can train to avoid, right? They're just they're unfortunate injuries, and you're right, they've just piled up on top of it, and then it just increased whatever chemistry issues that just weren't there.
Yeah, and then on top of that, even more so, then we're having to look to the youth, who have never played two of them haven't played a Major League Soccer game before this season. Obviously, Griffin Yao had barely any minutes. He might as well have been a brand new starter as well. And that must have been tough for them, and especially with Kevin, who's had a couple of games out through tight hamstring, which again is yet another injury on top of that long list that we've had. I think if you were to look at 2020 as a singularity on Ben Olsen, it would be incredibly harsh to have sacked him based on 2020 alone. And then you've got 2019, the end of that wasn't a great one, especially with the whole Wayne Rooney, the whole Lucio Acosta saga throughout the year, especially at the start when he had his transfer failure happen. I think kind of the highest points in recent memory anyway would have been the second half of 2018, when we came to Audi Field and we signed Wayne Rooney and we had that amazing run. It was just a shame that ended up with a loss on penalties to Columbus Crew.
Yeah, and you sit there, and as it's great that you kind of walked us back, right? Because I think when you sit there and we look at how the team's a little is disjointed now, right? And that it's not clicking, but I think you could actually probably trace that back to somewhere mid-season last year, right? To where this cloud that is over the club now and over the team now and the roster now probably dates back into somewhere between Lucho's failed transfer and Wayne Rooney saying, Derby seems pretty nice.
Derby?
See,
that's not happened. A nice place.
Something happened so that Wayne Rooney said, Derby.
Oh, mate, to go from, I mean, to be fair, Derby from where he lives up north is not that far of a trek. When you put it into perspective of America, it's quite a short distance. Um, but yeah, you're right. That period of time, that was incredibly tough. I think for me, with the fact that Lucio Costa, I would imagine, had disrupted the harmony in that dressing room. If he'd have gone, do you think Wayne Rooney would have stayed beyond before he left, or would he have still gone at the same time? And then, if that was the case, would Ben still be in the job right now?
I don't think Wayne left because of anything with DC United or the team. I think it's family, period,
Yeah,
to put it uh, in terms. Seeing some of the interactions that I had seen around the stadium, um, I think it was really apparent that his family just wasn't the lifestyle around DC isn't the same for a footballer's wife than it is
no,
uh, in the UK.
no,
Um, so I think that's where that is, and I think that's what was driving him home. And
yeah,
yeah, I totally understand, totally see how you come to that decision, right? So I think it's just that, but something happened in there that I think that just kind of broke the soul of the team in there, and I don't think the the people that remained didn't have the skill set to kind of grab the rest of them by the neck, right, and kind of pull them back up again. We just didn't have
no,
that kind of leader at the time.
no. And do we really have that? Well, apart from Bill, who can't really do it all from the 18-yard box. Do we have anyone in the middle who is that kind of leader right now?
I was hopeful, and I still think Felipe fills a lot of that gap.
Yeah,
From the get go when he got here. I went from I'm one of the people who went from I hate this guy, I hate this guy, I hate this guy. He put on a DC United uniform, and about 3 seconds later, I love this guy.
yeah,
So he was everything, right? And that's just one of those things. Players do this, right? It's just that you hate them
yeah,
until they're on your team, and then you see the beauty in them, right? And Felipe is one of those guys. Dima Kovalenko was one of those guys, and it was just
yes,
like, how do you, right? And he comes over here, and I think Felipe is one of those guys who can, when the wheels start falling off in a game, I think he's one of those guys who does have the willpower to kind of reach out and grab the guys and bring them in and kind of resettle them down a little bit. And I think what we've seen, like the last two games, give up the 4 goals. It's like at that time, it's like I was like, man, what if Felipe was here, right? And how could that have kind of stemmed the tide? I think there was a couple of cases this year, I think, where that's missing. But I think some more of that. It's like we've been blessed with a lot of great leaders over time, but I
yeah,
think there's been a gap in here where we really haven't had those let's go over the top boys and get at them type of
yeah.
leaders.
And like I said, for me, Bill Hamid is that kind of guy. But you being at the back, you can't get that message up to the top. So Olan Kamara at the moment won't hear the message from Bill. I mean, you probably can at the moment with the fact there's no crowd, because everyone can hear Bill right now, even when he's in the stands. And
Yeah.
mentioning about Red Bull damages your health. I love that comment. That was so fantastic. And it's just, you're right. We do need a leader on the pitch right now, and it's going to be a tricky end to the season, no doubt about it, because we're still missing a few players. I think Segura picked up a calf injury. I think it was in the last game.
Yeah, he's been out a couple of games, a couple of weeks because
Yeah,
he's another one who picked up something.
he's one of our nice utility players who you can just pretty much shove him anywhere on the pitch, and he'll do his best.
So that he's a Swiss Army knife for DC United, right?
Yeah,
He's not flashy anywhere. He's not probably not the optimum player for a lot of positions, but he's very good in a lot of positions. And when you talk about, hey, we've only put a few options on the bench, he's great because now I've got cover for a couple of different spots if somebody gets hurt, right?
yeah. I mean, you look at where he's played recently. He's played on the right of midfield. He's played on the left midfield. He's played up top. I'd imagine he could do a job at right back, left back, centre midfield, possibly even at centre back. He's just one of those guys who it will give 100%, and that's at times you need that kind of player.
Right.
Just comment that comment. I mean, I say just, it came in about 5 minutes ago. Stu has said the time is right for change. Feels like it's been coming, even if it just produces a honeymoon period to lift morale and gain some momentum. I mean, I would love to have that happen, and I think the first hurdle we need to get over is not conceding 4 goals, scoring a couple of goals, even if it means getting a tie. We need to get some points on the board just to get out of this rut we're in at the moment.
It's an emotional lift right now when they string 4 to 5 passes together and move the ball forward, right? And that's what's like, okay, because you start to think, okay, maybe, and then it kind of falls, right? And that's what Ben alluded to, right? They're emotionally fragile right now.
Yeah.
And maybe this is a case to kind of shake them up. Maybe it's a case for, and I think from this point forward, right, the players have to prove to themselves, to the club, to the league that they belong.
Yeah.
Right? And that this is how they're going to move forward. And one of the things, I also follow ice hockey, and
okay.
they follow coaches get fired all the time there. And one of the sayings they say is, it's easier to fire one coach than 20 players.
Yeah, and that is very true. Yeah.
Just, it's like, okay, I can get another guy in here to yell at you guys. So here, boom. And it does hit the guys, because especially you think about it, a guy like a Steve Birnbaum has known Ben Olsen his entire professional career.
Yeah.
And so they're friends on a level. And, so a friend lost his job because of their performance. And I think they need to rally around that and realize what they are and find out, right? And they need to quickly find that identity and to show what they are and to show their worth.
You're right. You're totally right on that. I hope that they have a good long look in the mirror and just go, we've not been good enough this year. Ben, who's been at the club 20 odd years, has lost his job. He's lost his I would imagine his dream job right now. And he's having to look at finding another role within the club to keep himself there and drive DC United on a different level. It will hurt for it. I mean, I would imagine Bill saw, is right, Steve Birnbaum's going to be sore about it. The young lads are going to be probably hurting from it as well. Hopefully this is the kick up the ass that they need. And I would like to see a good reaction against Chicago Fire this weekend. And like I said, I'm just going to temper my estimations on this. I hope we get at least a point. I would love for us to get 3 points at this weekend, but I'd be happy with 1 just to get us going.
Right. On the other end, I think I'd be happy with 1 point. I'd be happy to see some of that fire back.
Yeah,
ironically,
fire against the fire.
But yeah, just that fire that they've got in the game, right? And you just haven't seen it. It's been snuffed out, and I think it'd be great to see that back into the field, right? And so I think if they can get that fire back, play with some with that energy and try and find some goals, get a point. It's something to build on to move forward with.
No, absolutely. So speaking about Ben, let's do some reminiscing. What's your favorite memory of Ben Olsen?
Oh boy,
because there's plenty to choose from. Because he's obviously been here for forever. But what if you could pick one particular moment? What would that be?
Okay, so there was a pouring rain game. You can find the clips on. It's against the Fire at RFK Stadium. Okay. Hristo Stoichkov scored a monster free kick. It was a laser from. My seats were at midfield. He was in front of me when he lined up to shoot it. The ball must have been 40 yards out. And it was just a rope into the goal. Yeah. It's just wow, did we see that? Right. And so eventually this turns into a Ben Olsen story. Trust me.
So it's like we're talking
But
about a
it
Stoichkov
was
free kick goal here.
it was um, a warm day in DC. I think it was April, and a storm had come through. So
Mm,
I had come through, come up. I had lived in Southern Maryland at the time,
okay.
and my buddy and I we drove up. We're wearing shorts and a t-shirt. Then a front came through, and the rain came, and the temperature plummeted,
Oh,
and the the rain was coming down. You could like you're just getting soaked. All the fans ran up to into the cover, with the exception of the Screaming Eagles, Bar Brava, and a handful of other people.
yep.
Right? They would come around to throw T-shirts, and there's nobody to throw T-shirts to. It was ridiculous. Uh, so there's this game, and everybody's cold and it's miserable. I think they were down into extra time, into stoppage time,
Yeah.
and so it was post shootout, and uh, Ben Olsen had in stoppage time had set up a goal off of a corner kick, and then either got the equalizer or got the winner, all in extra time, just by being Ben, by running,
Wow.
by hustling, by finding the spaces and everything, and it was just an amazing moment. And it was one of the, I mean, it was torrential downpours where you couldn't see the opposite side of the field. There was a
Wow.
period that championship weather, DC parlance. It's just there's several games like that, but that was one, and it was just it was one of those where Ben Olsen really grabbed a game by the scruff of the neck, right, and dragged it right. It's like that wasn't
Yeah.
going to accept a defeat.
Nah, that's fair. I mean, for me, I think the biggest one, I think it's going to be up there with a lot of people's favorite memories, is that hat trick against the Red Bulls.
Oh yeah,
Oh, I mean, I just remember just being reminded of it last year when I did a favorite goal of DC United's poll, and that came up, and it's just like, yeah, there were good times back then. I mean, I
when
say
he was
Red,
the most surprised person in the building.
yeah. I mean, Ben Olsen is not a player you actually link with goals, would you? It's just a bit Ben Olsen.
Not not in the post Forest years, no.
No, no, that's very true. And I remember when I had him on the show earlier on this year, he was speaking about that time when he was at Forest, and he was telling me a story about. If you've not seen it, go and check that episode out, season 2, episode 8. Um, and he had his dad over for Christmas, and they were playing the classic Boxing Day game, and this is the first time that his dad had seen him in England playing football, and he had a mare of a game, and he just wasn't passing well, not doing anything, and then it got to a point where his dad's in the crowd saying, "That's my son," yada yada yada, and then he scores an own goal, and this is like he's just hit it with his left foot, his weak foot, and it's just gone into the top corner. I can't remember who said they were playing against, but it's just like it's just the way he actually still told that story with a bit of happiness, weirdly,
Mm-hmm.
even though it was an own goal and he didn't have a good game, but it was the fact that he was happy to reminisce about those kind of moments, and again, before we started the show, we was obviously speaking about Dave Johnson, how he does things on a personal level. Ben was the same.
Absolutely.
He's the kind of guy who's willing to talk to you, willing to spend time with you, and you can see it with fans as well. When he's gone around the sides of the pitch, he's chatting away, getting photos taken, and I think that's one of the main reasons why I love your league, why I love Major League Soccer, because you get, especially from the olden days, because a lot of footballers, they weren't paid huge sums of money, so they didn't have a huge ego to go alongside. It's family and it's community and it's everyone's on the same level kind of thing.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
just,
If you don't want huge sums of money, 1990s, early 2000s MLS is the place to be.
yeah, it's fantastic because you just see everyone, and the only reason why they're playing the game it's because they want to play the game. They're not in it for the money, and that's proper football, soccer, whatever name you're going to give it. That's pure, and there's nothing more exciting. I'm trying to think of the words. I can't think of the words, but you see the passion for the game, and that's what people want.
No, absolutely. Just one other favorite Ben Olsen story I have is from last year.
Yeah.
I was flying to a meeting in Phoenix.
Okay.
And we changed planes in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
So I get off the plane in Houston, and I just look around the gates or whatever, and I notice there's a gate going back to Washington Reagan.
Yep.
In going the other way, leaving in an hour or something like that. I'm like, oh. And the night before, DC had played Houston.
Okay, yeah.
And so just in my mind, I was like, I wonder if that's the flight that because they fly commercial, right? I wonder if that's the flight they're going to go back on. And there's like nothing of it. And then I turn and I look, and right there at the snack bar is Ben Olsen.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
Like, I walk over, I'm like, hey, Ben, how you doing? And he looks at me, he's like, oh, hey, how you doing? Shake hands, back when you could shake hands. And
yeah.
Right. And I was like, I just introduced myself. I was like, hey, Kim Kolb, Screaming Eagles. And he says, yeah, I know who you are.
Oh.
I'm like, well, why?
What have I done?
Right. And then we sat there, we chatted for a while, a bunch of stuff, right? And then it's like, all right, I got to get to my plane. So, see you guys later. And then, wandered off and wandered through the airport, and you could see the team one by one, twos and threes trickling towards the gate. But it was just great just to see Ben Olsen there and just have a quick chat. But that's the way he is, right? He can connect and knows people. And he goes back to, I was thinking about this earlier today, kind of a golden era of fan-player interaction. In the early 2000s, DC United did a lot of things as a team into Screaming Eagles events, Bar Brava events, just open events with their fans and meet the team events. And so there really was a great interaction between players and fans, right? And so like I consider Ben Olsen a friend. I consider Aleko Eskandarian a friend, right? All these guys. I've run into Ernie Stewart, who's now the GM of the National League. When he played for DC United, he lived in the same town that I did, so I would run into him at the local Best Buy. What? I would see him. That's just the way it was. And so you get to know these guys, right? Santino Caranta and I, his son or his daughter is the same age as my son. So we'd go to these team events and we kind of compare parenting notes as opposed to chatting about all this other soccer stuff or whatever. It's just a great time and it was just, there's part of us that are old enough to have enough gray around that we kind of lament those years. And I think it's just like, oh, why can't we get back to that? And I think we've come around and realized that was just a golden age, and you just celebrate that golden age for what it was.
Yeah.
And I think that's for part of us with Ben's job. It's now behind us.
Yeah.
Right? And it's all rearview mirror now.
Yeah. It's the end of an era. It really is, and it's one of these things where you look on it and you think, right, that chapter's now closed. It's not the end of the story. It's just the next chapter that we've got to look forward to. We're having this interim period where we've got Chad Ashton as interim head coach. I'm still struggling to think of who we're going to get in as boss. I mean, the first name that has flown in my head before, Arsene Wenger. I mean, he's available.
I've seen that several places. So,
I mean, Wenger in DC, why not?
Right.
He'll bring Mesut Ozil with him. I mean, he's not doing much right now as well. So, I mean, is
there a conflict of interest with him funding Gunnosaurus? Can you fund a mascot for another club while playing for a club? Is there a FIFA rule about that? And how much is it to get rid of that FIFA rule?
Yes. I bet it's a little bit more than what Gunnosaurus earns as well. Oh, bless. I mean, I saw that Gunnosaurus thing and I was thinking, I mean, if Ozil just took a wage cut, might not need to do that.
Hey, he's getting paid anyway. You have to put this suit on, pal. Go walk around town.
He's getting paid, what is it, £350,000 a week?
Yeah.
just to sit down and not do anything.
Arsenal, I will not play for you for £100,000 a week. You'll save money.
I'd not play for £1,000 a week.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I'd take that happily, but what? It is a tricky one because I don't think there's many coaches out there right now who are free and available. So I think we'll end up with Chad until the end of the season, and we'll use the
Oh
off
yeah.
season as a good time to search, get the right person in, and find someone who is going to take this club forward. Speaking on that, what kind of head coach would you want coming in to replace Ben?
Well, I think if they do something quick, all my optimism goes out the window
Okay.
because that means there's nothing to the strategic plan, right? Because all the pieces above the coach are still in place. And
Yep.
that's right. I've seen people are like, oh, well, maybe the next coach will bring in better players. Ben Olsen brought in 0 players. He's the
Yep.
coach. He coaches what's put in front of him, right? Maybe he gets a favor from an older player to, hey, why don't you come over and help grind it out over here.
Yep.
But I don't think there's he's had that much influence to bring in. Wayne Rooney did not come to DC United. He's like, sweet, I get to go play for Ben Olsen. Right? It's something that happened.
I mean,
right?
that's no harshness on Ben Olsen at all.
No,
But
it's just
you're right. Wayne Rooney didn't come to DC United to play for Ben Olsen. Ben Olsen's not that stature.
right. And so DC United needs to move the needle in many ways.
Yeah.
And so it's we need to bring in the players and get the buzz back again. And so I think we need to have that strategic direction. So above the technical staff, they need to have that set forward. And so from that, then you can select your coach to determine right your GM. Is it Dave Casper? Is it somebody else? You need to figure all that out before. If you get some big name coach in and nothing that's going to support him, I think we're just going to deal with the same story, and we're going to have the same conversation in 12 months' time.
Yeah. Just a little comment that's come through. Pochettino's available.
Oh, there you
go. That's someone who I completely forgot about. Obviously, he'd been linked with Man United quite a lot, especially with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's mixed performance, shall we say. But he's still around, so that's not bad. But you mentioned about Dave Casper and whoever comes in and whether we get a new GM or not. Do we actually need a GM? Because in my eyes, I see a GM as the same as a director of football over here in the EPL and the Championship and all we have over here. Sometimes they have too much influence over what goes on, and the head coach doesn't really get the chance to really show what he can do.
Well, I think over here, a general manager is more or less in charge of the comings and goings of players and helps gets the tools. I mean, he had a great relationship with Ben Olsen, right? Ben's like, oh, right, they talk all the time, they know what's going on between the two, and what Ben's needs and wants on the field versus what Dave can get, right? And then they're put into a box of requirements and limitations put forth by the club, right? And so right, so it separates the on-field versus the off-field portions of the job, right? And so I think that's what Arsenal just went through when they gave Arteta he went from head coach to manager, right? Kind of step back, kind of increase his role a little bit, right, to get more of that overarching flow and feel of the comings and goings of the players on the team. So I think from for the North American perspective, that's how we delineate coach and general manager.
Okay.
So the general manager is the one who makes trades, makes the signings and all that. So but I think that's why I always talk about strategic direction of the club, as opposed to we need to replace all these things and one for one replace what they want to do. Maybe you bring in an Arsene Wenger, why not? Let's go with that dream, right?
Yeah, why
But
not?
right, but he fills in both the Casper and the Ben Olsen role
Yeah,
to a case, right? And then there's a technical staff, which would I'm going to guess that Arsene Wenger's technical staff is going to also make a pretty good penny,
yeah, just
right? And
just a
so
little bit.
right, but so it's about how do you want to restructure the club, because this becomes an opportunity for how do you go forward, and it's an opportunity for DC United, who is an MLS 1.0 club, who completely missed the boat on MLS 2.0,
Yeah,
kind of caught on a little bit to some of the MLS 3.0 bits that have lost the way a little. But MLS 4.0 should be rolling out anytime now. Why not have DC United lead that way?
yeah,
Right.
absolutely. I mean, we've
And so just kind of wipe it all clean from that and kind of restructure and go forward and have something really good.
yeah, I think the end of the season we can literally, as you already said, wipe that slate clean and start from the bottom, work it up the top, and just have a really good structure. Because I think the first bit we need to have the right head coach for me to come in and for them to be able to tell Jason Levine what he wants rather than ha- Jason telling him this is what you're going to get. Because I think that might have happened a bit too much with Ben. He's
Yep.
been told what he's going to get. This is Ben's probably
Toothpicks.
gone. This is what I want, but he's Jason probably gone. Nope. This is what you're getting. This is all we can do. We need we need someone who's going to be able to dictate a bit more. I think. Not
Right.
we don't want a dictatorship or anything, but we need someone who can do that and actually get what
It's
they want and get the right players in. And
it's the right vision, and
yeah,
let's not send people to a sword fight with toothpicks.
exactly. Yeah,
So right,
again,
but
I love that
and so that's
analogy.
what that's my fear. Like if you get somebody right away, this to kind of fit into that, basically
Yeah,
like, oh, here, great, he's willing to hold the box of toothpicks and work his way through that. And so that's to me that would be the disheartening thing, right? And the
yeah,
optimistic, and I think the dream thing is somebody like they really set forth, right, and try to. If they don't succeed, so be it. But if they at least try to set MLS 4.0, right, and
yeah,
get into that new mode, right? Because it's the right time, right? Because 2020 is kind of the year that never happened, right?
yeah,
We've got things on the horizon that are really going to start clicking in, right? The academy is improving.
yeah,
Um, the situation with Avenue United is going to improve, right? It's the time to kind of bring it all in under one umbrella and move forward so you can flow everything through it, right? And that's
yeah.
realistically that's what Philadelphia did, right? And
Exactly.
they now all of a sudden they're the model. Maybe they're MLS 4.0, right? But
Yeah,
you know what? I'm okay with being in the second seat of in the MLS 4.0 train
yeah.
because it's going to be the next train. So
Well, that's it. You can learn from who's done it best and then be better than them.
yeah, absolutely.
So
You take what they learn and go one better.
exactly, that's what Apple do. I'm going on a different boat there. So what I want to do, I say we've talked about Ben and some really really good aspects. I want to hear from obviously one of our favorite people at the club, which is Dave Johnson, who surprised me today by sending in this voice clip. I wasn't expecting it. I didn't ask him for it, but he sent it in anyway, and he wanted to give his thoughts on Ben's time at the club. So we're gonna play it. It's about a minute long, so have a nice listen and see what he had to say.
Right.
This is Dave Johnson, and simply put, Ben Olsen is special. Lives and plays with energy and passion for whatever he is involved with. It showed when he was a player, helped the club to two MLS Cups. I always remember the hat trick against the Red Bulls in 2007. And yeah, we dearly wanted Ben Olsen to win an MLS Cup as a coach, like he did as a player. But with his commitment and drive, he somehow still guided the team to the U.S. Open Cup in 2013. We must remember that. Coach of the Year in 2014, and also postseason appearances in 5 of the past 6 seasons. Yeah, you see all that on paper, but what you don't see is on the inside. Ben Olsen, well, it's something you just know. He bleeds black and red. We must always appreciate his time and be thankful he will still be involved with DC United. And I thank you for your show. It's wonderful. And Kim Kolb being on the show. That's even better.
So yeah, absolutely awesome thing from Dave there. So again, Dave, if you're watching, thank you so much yet again for sending in that message. I think he was right with everything that he said on there. I can't. We've spoken about it, and he's just kind of reiterate what we've been saying about what Ben's like, the fact that he's going to still be in the club, and hopefully he will be able to bring this club from a different perspective, but hopefully know that the fact that Ben's been here since pretty much day dot, and be able to show the players who come in, whether it's through the academy or through trades and whatnot, that there is something for the badge and that there is something there to play for, and we need to do with some steely determination and some passion as well.
Yeah. One more thing along those lines. Ben is DC, and he's a guy who embraced DC well before it was cool to embrace DC, right? And I think a lot of people do now, but a lot of the athletes in town, they live in the suburbs, they live far away. The coaches definitely do, right? It's just not. But Ben just embraced the city as it is, and really soaked it up. And he's from central Pennsylvania. He's from the shadows of 3 Mile Island, but he is DC. So that's something that also just he that's why he connects with people, right? That people just see him around, right? He biked to work and stuff like that. So it's just something, right?
He is absolutely something. I mean, I think I was reading an article on MLSsoccer.com or somewhere else maybe, and they were talking about how he was able to get Ben's Chili Bowl renamed to Ben Olsen's Chili Bowl, and there's not many other coaches in DC sporting franchises that have been able to do something like that. The fact that he is that kind of guy, as you rightly said, embraced the city and he is Mr. DC.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, you could say someone like Bill Hamid or even Steve Birnbaum, even though he's from the other side of the country. The fact that they've been there a long time, you could call them Mr. DC, but Ben Olsen is definitely Mr. DC.
Ben's the trailblazer in this, right? And so, other people have other guys have since lived in DC. Bill's one that does, right? And Steve's another one, right? They're in there and they're part of that fabric. But Ben was the first one who said, "Nah, I'm going to go live in DC and absorb, take in the city."
Oh, absolutely. So, moving on from Ben, we need to talk about the games that we've had and the games that we got coming up.
Oh yeah, gotta go. Bye.
Don't leave me on my own. The New York City FC game, I actually didn't stay up for this one. I was not feeling great. I wasn't 100%, so I was overtired. Too many late nights with watching other games. Did catch up on the highlights. It didn't look pretty. I mean, I looked at the record. We've never won at Yankee Stadium or wherever NYCFC have ended up playing, whether it's a Red Bull Arena, because, New Jersey. I think I'll call them New Jersey FC at one point. With Metro Stars, we've got 2 New York teams who don't play in New York right now. How the heck did that happen? But we've not won against them when we've been on the road. And yet again, we shifted 4 goals, and it just seemed like we were just on the back foot for the entire game. Have you got any thoughts on that? Did you see it in that aspect?
Well, I think it was unlucky that it was at Yankee Stadium versus Red Bull Arena, because Yankee Stadium is the worst place to play a soccer game.
Yes.
It is a postage stamp sized field. It's uneven turf. Yep. It's just it's awful. It's an awful place to be to play the game. So I was really, really uh, disappointed that that NYCFC wanted to run home to that home of all homes. Yeah, if they had run home to some other place, okay, I get it if you don't want to
Yeah,
play in Red Bull Arena.
yeah,
I'm on board with that.
yep.
But but it takes away another chance, a chance for Eric Sorga to be twice the hero of Harrison. So I think that was part of it, right? Is that it's really unfortunate you get in there because it is just a non-forgiving place to play, and uh, mistakes happen, and NYCFC could jump on them, and
Hmm.
mistakes happen. Actually, United almost came up on the positive end a couple of times,
Yes, I
and there were a
mean,
couple of bad bounces, and the ball got behind them, but United just story of the season just couldn't seize that moment, and it just got away. I mean, and then you think about it, it's 3 penalty calls that really weren't, going each way. I mean,
yeah,
the handball against NYCFC.
yes.
Okay, because I like the way you're pointing, Mr. Ref, but I'm not really
It,
on board.
no,
Schoberg,
that's something I
Schoberg
did want to talk
penalty.
about
Right. Yep.
because he's not looking at the ball. Yes, it's hit his hand, but we've seen it a couple of times in the Premier League. I think it was the Newcastle Spurs game where Andy Carroll headed it and it hit out Dyer. He's in the air, jumped, looking in the complete opposite direction. But under the rules, it's a handball. It's
It
my
becomes because we took mistake because we're trying to fix things, right? We're always trying to
yeah,
fix things, right? It's all an experiment. We're trying to fix things. That's fine.
yeah,
But it comes back. Think back 10 years ago. We all had a pretty good understanding what a handball was, and the referee had discretion to with that pretty good understanding what a handball was.
yep,
And you know what? We really didn't have to talk about it all the time. Now we talk about it all the time because we tried to redefine it and make it better.
yeah.
It wasn't really all that broke, and we tried to fix it, and it's brokener.
Honestly, it's got too complicated. We just need to go back to simplicity with it. If it hits your arm, it's a handball, but it's. I mean, I like the fact that we got the decision our way, but the fact that the opponent didn't see or wasn't able to have any opportunity to get out of the way, it's incredibly harsh. And I think if it happens the other way around, we'd be absolutely livid.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's no different than Stoberg, right? He was sliding across, and his arms out
Yeah,
to because he's sliding. Well, what's he supposed to do? Tuck his arms behind his back when he slides.
yeah.
It,
It's just
it comes off of it, and I mean, it affects play. And I could see even back in the old days, think back 10 years, 20 years, where maybe a referee just he's had a harsh night, so he's going to call you,
yeah.
call it on you. But, all right, whatever. But it's not. It shouldn't be an automatic thing, right? And
No.
you could say, the referee could say, no, but I think you put your arm out to make yourself, okay, fine. That's your judgment, fine, right? But not just, aha, right? It ticks the box that it hits your hand.
Yeah.
And I think we need to think about intent and the kind of more of a case by case as you go, right? Because
Yeah.
there are, I'm sure, out there some intelligent officials. There are some not.
Are we talking just pro referee? Or are
I'm
we talking
just
about
trying
the
to think
entire world?
globally. There's got to be a couple. And
Yeah.
so right, but you got to put that give them back that power to understand the flow of the game because they understand the flow of the game,
Yeah.
and you want to get the call right, but you don't have to call every little ticky tacky foul that's out there.
Exactly. And just to go back to that actual Schoberg penalty, yeah, he's sliding. All he's put his arm down to stop him whacking his head off the ground. I'm actually getting livid thinking about it now. So this is where maybe the handball rule is too simplistic. Potentially,
You have to give the judgment back to
yeah,
the referees to figure it out, the officials to figure it out, right?
yeah. There's some rules which need to be clear cut. It's either this or it's that. But sometimes you're right. There needs to be that moment where they need to be able to go right. It's a handball, but it's not deliberate, so we're not going to give it. Or if it wasn't deliberate, an indirect free kick.
They
Because
could do that, yeah.
I'm sure that was back in the day. If it was an accidental handball, it was an indirect free kick. I might be wrong.
I don't.
Someone hopefully will correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure it was an indirect free kick, and that was it. Potentially a yellow card, but that not. And I'm sure a deliberate handball used to be sending off.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we need to do something, and and it's not the same from league to league, right?
No.
So I think the U.S. readings of the laws are a little bit different than they have in the Premier. Like right now, it's just nuts in the Premiership, right? It's just
the amount of penalties that we're getting at the moment is just insane right now.
Yeah.
Is one thing. No, I've not had a show since the game before that against Atlanta. So briefly, let's quickly talk about the Atlanta game.
Sure.
Because that substitution, who was at fault for that? Because what was it? Should Ben have known who was on his roster? Because in my eyes, yes, he should.
He's responsible, right? Because he helps put the team on the field, but he's not the one who puts the team sheet together for the officials. There's a member of the staff that does that. And my thought, and remember, the league also missed it.
Yes.
Right?
But the social media teams didn't. They had Knaus on the bench.
Right. Well, so somewhere in the pregame, they said, my postulation of what happened.
Yeah.
Because everybody that was healthy the game before is just as healthy against Atlanta.
Yes.
Knaus was not on the roster because he was suspended because of the red card.
Correct. So
I think everybody's healthy. Everybody's on the roster. It was just a cut and paste from one to the next. But Knaus didn't make it because he was off because of suspension.
I like your thinking there.
That's my thinking. That's where the human error comes in, right? Because it's like, because it's not like, oh, great, a couple weeks before, like Knaus is back from injury. Great, we're going to put him back on the roster, right? Because he came from. You don't think necessarily from that suspension angle back to the roster, and I think there's just something that was missed in that.
Yeah, and I remember they were checking their mobile phones about the roster, so the cut and paste thing does ring true. That would be logical. I never thought about that.
And it's a weird time because you look at the roster. How many goalkeepers are on that game day roster?
Yeah, right, yeah.
3.
Yeah.
Right.
We'd never,
even though Earl doesn't necessarily dress all the time.
He wasn't even on the bench. He was in the stands.
And he wanders away, right? Because but there's points where he does, he is on the bench.
Yeah.
And also it's a manpower issue. There's just not enough healthy bodies, right? And so put him on the roster. I don't know if he gets like an extra $25 because he's on the roster or something. I don't know. But maybe. So
yeah.
Why not? Right. Put him on the roster. He gets the game credit.
But my next point on that then is Knaus is fit. Why didn't he start? He only missed one game.
Well, he was coming back off of injury still, if you think about it, because it was just the game before was his first game back.
Yes, because that was against Nashville, wasn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
And so he still wasn't necessarily up to full match fitness.
Yeah.
And it's also kind of hard to argue against Moses.
To be fair. I mean, did you see today in the UK, there's a national newspaper called The Guardian.
The Guardian.
Yes.
With the top 60 young players in the world. The only American, the only MLS player is Moses Nyman.
Yes.
I tweeted that out for Screaming Eagles. Like that's just
I saw that and I was gobsmacked. I mean, I was slightly disappointed Kevin didn't make it.
Well, that's part of it. It's like, hey, well, what's all these other guys? But
yeah, Kevin, you've got Griffin. Right. Moses is good. He's on the same level as the other two. But
the one thing I have as a positive from Moses that kind of makes him step out, though, he can't hide because he's in the middle of the pitch and he has to be in on every play, right?
Yeah.
Kevin, Griff, they can kind of drift out and kind of protect themselves a little by being outside. But Moses has to be engaged, has to be on it 100% of the time, and he's shown it. And that's what's amazing. You get the game in the positive. All three, which it's amazing because I have coached. I've got licenses, and so I have actually coached that age group of players because those three are the same age as my son.
Right.
So like some of the like one of my followers on Instagram is a former player of mine and everything, right? And I goes like, "Hey, these three guys, where are you? What have you been? Get off the Cheetos, pal." But that's the mentality. So I see that. Yeah. So I know that age bracket of player, and it's just amazing and how they've stepped in and haven't missed a beat. And I talked about this too with Devin McTavish after a game one time, right? It was just like these are guys, they're stepping in and they're putting their foot down and basically daring the coaching staff to take them off.
Yeah.
Because they're proving that they belong, right? And this reminds me of like when Andy Nahar came on, right? It's like he comes in and it's like you get a couple, but you do have to pull them. You have to rein them in, right? And it's like, all right, take a break off. Actually, I thought, well, Kevin's hamstring injuries were, maybe not the best, but actually it's pretty good to kind of, step back. Now that you've been in it, observe the game a little bit. We're going to get you back into it now. So I think that, that's good. So I'm really happy with how those three have really seized their opportunities.
Yeah, they really have. They, as you rightly said, they've not missed a beat. They've looked the part. They look like they have played many, many seasons already, yet they're 16 and 17 years of age. It's just baffling how composed the likes of Moses is, and you see him picks up the ball, turns a guy, is able just to play a simple pass and regain possession for the team. Then you've got Kevin and Griffin who are happy just to attempt to take on a player and try and whip those crosses in, or when you were seeing Kevin trying to cut inside and get a shot off, or Griffin coming in from the right-hand side, volleying it in with his left foot for his first MLS goal. It's nice to see that we've got this youth academy coming through and it's starting to produce talent. I mean, I can't remember who I was speaking with about it. We were talking about Loudon Academy and the fact that we've got the MLS Next program happening with many, many clubs across the country. It's going to be a few years before we start seeing the fruits of that, but it's nice to see that we're actually getting stuff already.
Yeah, no, absolutely, right. And I think, and what's interesting is that you can get this, but when the U.S. failed to qualify for Russia, right, it was the sky is falling.
It was devastating, wasn't it?
Dismal. We need to fix everything. But I thought it was, from my perspective, right, and coaching, it's like I knew the fix had already been made, right? And I think look at it now. Look at all the young players coming, into MLS squads. The young American players that are in Germany, in the UK, right? That are pushing the limits, right? And so I think it's right, Christian Pulisic's all of a sudden the old man.
Yeah.
So and I think, I had said at the time, Christian Pulisic is the tip of the iceberg, right? And the solution's coming, and it's been percolating underneath, and now they're finally getting mature enough that we can see them on the professional side.
Yeah.
And I think we're only going to magnify it if we do the academies and the development right on a larger scale, right? And that's what we're doing, right? It's kind of maybe it's a bad term, but it's kind of like the World War II thing, right, where they've awoken the sleeping giant, right, and that's really what we are, right? Is that it's the sleeping giant, and that we're going to get there, and we're going to, a lot more players are going to produce. And what we've done is, I think we've gotten the coaches out of the way of the players, and we're letting the players flourish more individually, right? And I think that's why we have a Griffin, that's why we have a Kevin, that's why we have a Moses, right? Because generally we would have these great young talents, but they were interchangeable because they were basically overcoached to be the same talent amongst the three of them, and you couldn't tell them apart.
Yeah, it's nice to see we've got a bit of flair, and I would like to see in the off season to maybe integrate a couple more from Loudon Academy just to see how they get on. I think it's DiPietro, who I've seen quite a few times. He's starting to really look the part. So I wouldn't mind seeing him coming in and seeing how he does, because he looks like a good talent.
Yeah, and now that Loudon's season has finished, several of those players are now up with DC United and training with DC United, along with a couple of other kind of extra players to round out the squad. So that's every bit of exposure at that next level helps. As long as you do it the right way. You can do it the wrong way and just totally crush them.
Yeah.
I'm thinking back to like when Marseille crushed basically the academy squad.
Yes.
And I don't know how many of those players may have walked away from the game after that, right? And that's what you don't want.
Yeah. No, you want to take it steady with them. You don't want to throw them in the deep end and something like this.
Yep.
That's so moving on. We've got our game on Saturday evening, which is, if I remember rightly, 7 p.m. kickoff, 7:30.
It's Chicago, so it's another hour for you.
Yes. Don't remind me about that, because that's cool. Yep. So I've got the time down as a 7:30 kickoff Eastern time, and so that is a 12:30 in the morning kickoff for me. And whoever's watching alongside me, which will probably be Stu and Andy, who've been commenting on the live chat.
So I understand your pain, because my regular job, actually, I generally travel a lot for my regular job, and I'm actually in Geneva quite a bit. So
Geneva?
When there are games when I'm overseas, I'm trying to find some sketchy stream somewhere, or floating around VPNs trying to make stuff work so I could watch the game. So I understand that pain of what time is it? Though I do appreciate that Sky had started to picked up the games.
Yes.
And I could, if they're early enough, if it's an afternoon game here, I can convince one of the bars. No, you have it. Here, just keep scrolling. Yeah, it's Sky 8. That's the one you want, is that one. What is this? It doesn't matter, because I'm going to watch it, and I'm going to pay you for a beer or 3. So just put it on, and we'll all be happy.
Exactly. I know it's. I just looked at it. It wasn't Saturday. It's actually Sunday.
Okay, so it's Sunday. So Monday for you.
Yes, and I'm at work the next day. That should be interesting. But I'll stay up, because that's what I do. It's
for the love of the game.
For the love of the game, for the love of the club. But Chicago Fire, who've kind of gone through a bit of a tough time at the start of the year with the whole rebrand that went really, really badly. They've moved back to Soldier Field, so they're back in what they would rightfully call home. And now we've got a new interim head coach. It's an incredibly difficult one to kind of predict, because everything's up in the air right now.
Absolutely.
I'm just looking at the league table. Chicago are currently 11th in the Eastern Conference, sat on 16 points. They're only 5 points ahead of us, which feels really weird.
It's 2020. It's all weird.
It is. So, and they've scored 20 goals, conceded 25. At home, they've won 4, lost 3, and tied just the once. So, it's an open game.
Well, Chicago is very much like us. They're a team that was on top, and it's kind of wandered the desert now for quite a bit.
Yep.
And can they find their way out again, right? And I think that was the the try at the rebrand, the
Yep.
getting them back to Soldier Field so people can find the fans can find them again,
Yeah.
because they didn't follow. So they right, and so that's they need to kind of re-entrench themselves, and it really is the same story that DC United has.
Yep.
Is trying to re-entrench themselves and reignite the fan bases that are in both cities. They're great. They're both great soccer cities, and the fans are there, and it's about getting that right spark for everybody. So yeah, it'll be interesting. But again, like you said, we got the new coach on a short week.
Yep.
So right, it's and putting appointing Chad Ashton as the coach, but it's like, okay, but realistically, it's going to be the same from the coaching side. It's about the response from the players. Exactly. And it's like I said, if the shakeup has got to really hit the guys at the point where they realize that it's on them and that they need to fire it up. And I'm sure they're gutted, right? And that they realize that they need to do it and they need to make it happen.
I've just seen some news come through
from
DC United. So we have acquired an international slot from Sporting Kansas City in exchange for $50,000 in 2021 general allocation money. And because of that, Edison Flores is now available.
I was going to say, because they needed to do that because we were capped, and we would need to acquire a slot to get Flores back on the game day roster.
Yeah, because I think when we got Jordi Reyna, I think we gave up an international slot, if I remember rightly, in that trade.
It's so hard to keep track of all the non-player movements that go on in MLS. GAM, TAM, and international spots. We can trade it all.
It's just bizarre. It's like, how does anyone... I mean, I'm guessing that's another reason why in MLS you have general managers, is someone just to study how the heck it works. Because I play Football Manager religiously, pretty much. And you're trying to work out GAM and TAM, and you're thinking, do I use GAM for this? Do I use TAM for that? Do I just trade for a slot and not give them any TAM or GAM, or what do I do? And then you look at the roster rules and you think, I've got salary caps now. I use GAM to bring down the salary wages. And
this move this here, move this here, move this here. Right?
It's a massive jigsaw puzzle.
Yep.
And trying to find the right pieces to fit in the right place is, sometimes it feels impossible.
It is not, and that's what when you set this, and when it doesn't work, it's actually understandable it doesn't work, because it's really freaking complicated.
Yeah.
to assemble a squad and get stuff right, and like get them to, and make sure that you didn't accidentally acquire a baseball pitcher in the process.
I mean, to be honest, if that happened at New York City FC, you wouldn't be surprised.
Well, yeah. I mean, I would make jokes, but we did ground share with the baseball team here too. So.
Oh dear. Oh yeah, back in the day, wasn't it?
Yeah, we ground shared with the football team.
Yeah.
And then we had it to ourselves, and then the Nationals, or the Expos moved and became the Nationals, and so we did the ground share, and that's Dempsey had this. We hated it at the time, but it was a great goal scoring celebration where he scored a goal and ran to the home plate area and pretended like he hit a home run.
I mean, fair play. Kudos for that.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Now I look back and I realize it was a brilliant celebration. But man, at the time, I wanted to run on the field and punch him in the face.
Now we're a family show. We won't condone violence.
Yeah, at the time, I've grown. I've matured.
Exactly. So, are you willing to give a prediction for Sunday's game?
Oh, let's be optimistic and say 1-1.
Oh, I love it.
We get on the board.
Yeah, let's get on the board. Let's get a goal. Let's small steps. Small steps. Let's get a goal, and I'd be happy with 1-1 if we managed to sneak a 1-0 win. Um, I'd be happy with. I'd be over the moon actually because clean sheet and a win that would be insane. But just some form of attacking intent is what I kind of want to see because that's what we've missed. I've been pleased that Ben in recent times has actually been playing 4-4-2. I love that. That's my favourite formation in the world. And if anyone knows me, they will know that. Mike Bassett, England manager. I know Sam Legg, who responded to me a few times about the 4-4-2 formation with their gifs about him. It's brilliant. So, because I think we're in this age of tiki-taka and Catenaccio and all that jazz and the gegenpress. I just want to see some classic football. A 4-4-2. Is that too much to ask?
I think at this point, especially since I'm willing to settle for moral victories too, right? I don't necessarily need 3 points. I did some moral victories, right? I want a little bit more aggressiveness. I want more of that mental attitude that's needed, right? And that's something as things weren't clicking, right? And we had put out Kamara and we paired him with Rivas. Part of me is like, can we start with Sorga because Sorga stretches the field, and nobody else stretches the field, right? I mean, we try to stretch the field with Kamara, but Sorga really stretches the field. And I understand there's a strategy for you can do that when they're tired, but that strategy wasn't working. So maybe stretch them first and get them tired, and then work at it, right? And so I think, and then maybe the Sorga type striker works better with a Gressel. Right, because I don't know how many times Gressel has passed. Like he keeps forgetting he's moved on from Atlanta. It seems like.
Yeah, I mean he's Gressel has got this beautiful cross, but when you've got Kamara who has gone out wide, there's no one in the middle to pick up that cross, and it's frustrating to see because for me, in my eyes, now that we've got Jordi Reyna, he's thrown another wrench into the mix. It's Sorga for me doesn't work well with a Reyna kind of player. I like Reyna. I like what I've seen so far, but I've also liked what I've seen from Rivas, and I think a Rivas and Reyna partnership up top is going to work wonders because Rivas has got somehow a great first touch, and he seems to win the ball in the air. He's got a great header. He's been able to pass the ball with his head. He's just been unfortunate not to get that goal, which I forget who it was against, where he volleyed it.
No, he had that stinger.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Was that,
See,
and
that's
that
where
Rebels?
We complain about the lack of offense, but they're also snake bit on offense, right? Because realistically, 89 times out of 100, that shot goes in.
Oh, yeah.
And we're dancing. Right. Yeah. And there's been several opportunities like that and several through balls that just misconnected, right?
Yeah.
That just wasn't there. And so it's like we're always just kind of a half a step away from something, right? And then that just doesn't that affects the confidence levels.
Oh, absolutely.
And I hear about you, but I don't think we're going to see Reyna for quite a while. So
yeah.
I think when you look at the people who traveled to New York, I think you can identify players that tested a certain
yes.
So
I didn't realize he hadn't traveled to New York.
The potential player did not travel, so there's only a few.
Yes.
So
but Birnbaum travel?
He did not, but they also said he had an ankle ailment.
Or did he?
But they didn't say anything about Reyna traveling or not traveling, or ankle injury, or sore thumb or something. So we'll see how it works out, right? And so
exactly.
It's just, I think, other than the people that we saw in New York, we officially don't know who it is. So who has tested positive. So we need to keep that in mind as we think about who plays and complaining about who doesn't play. Well, he can't. Sorry.
Yeah. That's it. It's if you test positive, over here you have to isolate for 10 days. I don't know what it's like over in the States.
Yeah, well, there's MLS protocols and then there's local protocols. So yeah, all kinds of stuff. The MLS protocols, I mean, they're pretty good and stringent, and hopefully it's a one case thing and not something
Yeah.
that is spread across to the rest of the team. That would be horrific. So
Yes.
I mean, I think we see Colorado going through it right now, and right, and you think back to the MLS's back tournament when the positive result came up, right, and that even caused just kind of bad feelings between Toronto and DC. It just right didn't need to be at that point, right, and she should have been been happy to play the game. So
Exactly.
yeah, I think it's hopefully we get it.
But yeah, for me, I want to see the 4-4-2. I want to see some attacking intent, some nice aggression again, and just. I know I said it before in a previous episode, and I think I used the wrong turn of phrase, but I don't want to say it again because I'll be disappointed in myself. But we need to see something there that we've not seen for a while. We need to see that spark back in the lads, and hopefully the fact that Ben's gone, it like I said before earlier on, it gives them that kick up the rear ends that they need, and it would be nice to get that point. It'd be amazing to get 3 points this weekend. My fingers are crossed, my toes are crossed, everything else is crossed. So we'll see what happens. I can't keep them crossed for too long though. So come on, DC.
Yeah,
come on,
there
lads.
you go.
Let's get this win and let me uncross my fingers. So, kind of coming to end of the show now. Thank you, Kim, for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure to finally meet the person who's been commenting on the YouTube chat for the last however long it's been now.
We trade tweets and Instagram comments and everything.
Exactly. That's something I was going to ask. What shirts have you been posting about today?
Oh, today is a classic. Oh, here I can show you better. A classic DC United jersey.
How many have you got?
I don't know. That's part of this whole process. If you follow me on Instagram, I have been posting a jersey of the day for 170 some days now.
What?
Yeah. So it started with started back on April 15th with a Jackie Robinson jersey, and then it's just a jersey a day until now. And so yeah, I've got several more. I'm going to say it's at least get up to 220, I think. But I haven't really touched my Philadelphia Flyers jerseys. I'm from Southern New Jersey, where we speak English. By the way, not whatever it is they speak in North Jersey, where the New York / New Jersey / Connecticut / Vermont Metro Stars started, and so most of my fandom is based in Philadelphia. DC United is my only DC team for the most part. Yeah. So I've got a lot of hockey, a handful of baseball, but yeah, I've got a version of every United shirt done, with the exception of like the one-off they did for there was a shooting at Virginia Tech, and they had a one-off shirt for that, and then they auctioned them, and I did not get my hands on one of them.
Damn.
So that's one of the things that's out there to get. But yeah, and every version of a U.S. jersey since World Cup '94.
Flippin' heck. Yeah, that's proper commitment right there. That's proper commitment. I mean, I wish I had more DC jerseys. I keep looking on this website over here called Classic Football Shirts.
Oh yeah.
And I keep wanting to pull the trigger, and I've missed out on one that was. I think it was the 2015-2016 away jersey, the one with the red stripes.
Yeah. Yep.
I like the look of that one, but now it's gone. And I'm thinking, why didn't I just pull the trigger on that? Because I've only got two at the moment. I've only got the which one is it? The 2016-2017 home jersey, and the 2018-2019 home jersey, which I got when I last came out to DC as a birthday present, which was nice. It was the actual, the authentic one rather than the replica, so that was lovely. I need to get this season's because that looks tidy.
It's a nice shirt, yeah.
It's a very nice, but it costs a lot of money to get
That's
it.
the unfortunate thing.
Yeah, and to get it shipped over here, the shipping and taxes, it's almost as much as the shirt itself.
Well, maybe we can find an intermediary for you at some point for some of this stuff.
Yes, yes. Well, I need to get something done for about that. Oh, Stu says so many jerseys. It's absolutely amazing. Bless him. So yeah. So where can actually people find you on Instagram and Twitter then?
What am I? I am NestDevil9 on Twitter.
Yep.
Plays a friend. I went to Arizona State University, which is the Sun Devils, which is why Devil is in there. And it's soccer. We call the Screaming Eagles. We call the area the Nest, so that's why it's NestDevil9 because that's when it started. What is my Instagram handle? I forget.
I think it's Kolb KL.
I think it's just I think it's just a simple my name and my two initials. So that's very uncreative, but there we go. That's what that is.
Let's have a quick look. Yeah, it is Kolb KL. So follow him there as well.
Very simple. Yeah.
You'll find
generally it's filled with random soccer pictures because when I go, like I said, I go to Geneva. I find the matches in Geneva. I have I'm at like the 5th tier of Swiss soccer routinely.
What?
This the 5th tier, the 4th tier, the 3rd tier, the 2nd, 1st tier. I've seen 1 through 5 in Switzerland.
Wow.
Generally, just because I have a free afternoon, you check the schedule. It's like, oh, there's a game here. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's the least amount of money I've ever paid for some games. You walk in because they don't see you walk in, and some games they're like it'll be like 5 francs sometimes.
Wow.
Right, and you can go to some other ones. We've seen some wild stuff at some of these matches, but yeah, so you'll see some games from that, which it's really weird because you get these these pitches with these beautiful backdrops of the Alps and things, and a Lake Geneva or something in the background. It's incredible. So yeah, you'll see pictures of that or just random out the airplane pictures and things like that. But right now it's all jerseys. That's just what I'm doing. Yeah. So it's actually helping me catalog what I've got because why not? Why not at this point?
I think the one of the ones I saw from you, which was the craziest one I think I've seen you do, was the Newcastle goalkeeper jersey from was it 94, 95?
Yeah, it's late 90s.
Yeah,
it was the good, really big, poofy ones that we used to wear,
I think it was a dark
green
and black.
Yeah, that's like a Shea Given special, right? That's like what you would have seen him wear, I think.
Yeah, Shea Given or Shaka Hislop, I think it would have been.
Yeah.
No, those are the days of proper goalkeeper jerseys, not what we got now, where it's just a plain color.
Yeah.
But those days,
it had design and flair. It's the Campos influence.
That's it. You look at the design on them. You see something about the city or the town, whoever is wearing it. I know for my UK team, which is Middlesbrough, you see the Transporter Bridge. Newcastle, you saw the Tyne Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
I think the northeast of England likes their bridges for some weird reason.
Well, you don't get wet. That's why.
Oh no, we get wet over there. It's
yeah, but you don't get
we don't get monsoons.
Right. Well,
we don't get torrential down. Well, unless you're in Manchester, then it's always wet.
And I was watching those games last weekend, and it looked awfully moist.
Yes. It was raining goals. How's that for a pun?
There you go. Wow.
Yes. Let's end it on a pun. If you're watching the show, thank you for tuning in. Remember to hit that subscribe button. You'll see links down below for things like merchandise, the website, membership, links to the show theme and all that jazz. And don't forget to hit the guys up at the MLS UK show. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's at DC United Kingdom. Facebook and Instagram, DC United Kingdom FC, because somebody else decided to take that before I did. And that's about it. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you to Kim for coming onto the show. It's, like I said before, it's been an absolute blast. And thank you, Ben, for everything that you've done for the club. It's been a fantastic time seeing you here. I'm thankful that you've still got a job at the club. But it is the end of an era. But as we always say on this show, to end it, Vamos United.